Hey everyone, it's Luke from Weldpro. Today I'm here with the CUT40HSV plasma cutter from Weldpro. In part 1 of this series, we did an unboxing of this plasma cutter. Today, I'd like to set up the cutter and the torch so that we're ready to make some cuts. The process of setting this up is pretty simple, but take a moment, watch the next few minutes of this video, and I'll walk you through step by step how to make sure that this thing is set up correctly. Before we get started talking about everything up front here, let me show you something about the air inlet on the back of the machine and give you a little tip that might help. Sometimes you may want to disconnect your air line, so installing a male quick connect fitting on the back of your machine can be useful. We'll do this using some Teflon tape. Tighten this down using a wrench, but don't over tighten it. Now I'll install the other end of the coupler so the air is ready to flow into the machine. Make sure that when you're using an air compressor with any plasma cutter, you get the air as dry as possible. You can do this by purchasing an inexpensive air dryer someplace like Amazon. It doesn't really matter what you use, all that's important is that it dries your air. Moist or damp air will release hydrogen and oxygen inside of the consumable cooling pattern in the torch head. This can shorten consumable life and deteriorate electrodes and nozzles a lot quicker than if the air was dry. Let's go ahead and hook up our ground clamp next. The ground clamp dinse lug is actually located in the bottom right corner on the front of the machine. Go ahead and insert your connector. Rotate it about 90 degrees clockwise to make sure that it's secure in the front of the machine. Go ahead and attach the ground clamp to your workpiece. Make sure that the material you're attaching it to is clean. Next, let's go ahead and set up this CB50 high frequency torch. I'm excited to use this torch. It's very comfortable to hold and small enough to access tight places. To get this torch hooked up, we have 3 connections. First, let's hook up our air connection. This is a brass fitting that's a ball and socket design. Therefore, you don't need to use any Teflon tape. This brass connector screws in on the bottom left corner of the machine. This is the fitting located right below the picture of a torch. Go ahead and tighten this down using a wrench, but don't over tighten it. You'll notice there's a screw on the front of your machine with a black cap over it. Unscrew this cap counterclockwise and take it off. This red wire has a stay-on connector on the end of it. Slide this over the threaded lug and reinstall this black cap. This is the wire that provides power to your pilot arc. Finally, take your torch switch connector and install this with this slot facing downward. You'll need to screw in this metal ring to make sure that the connector is secure in the front of the machine. Our airline, torch, and ground clamp are all connected, so next let's energize the machine with the switch in the back. We'll take a look at the interface and how to adjust that. On the far left of the display, we have the amperage readout and the adjustment knob. Next, in the top center, you'll find the trigger position switch and also the test function. By pressing this switch up, it allows the air to flow to test the flow rate. On the right, we have our pressure gauge. This reflects the regulated pressure to the torch. This pressure can be changed by using the regulator knob. To do this, you pull the knob outward, rotate counterclockwise to decrease or clockwise to increase the pressure. On the CUT40 series machines, we usually prefer about 55 psi. It's also important that the air coming from your compressor is no higher than 90 psi. Make sure to look out for part 3 of the CUT40HSV series, where we're going to show you cutting on a few different materials. Take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button under this video. Weldpro is committed to releasing lots of tutorial and how-to videos to better help you as a welder. From all of us here at Weldpro, thank you so much for tuning in. We can't wait to see what you build with your CUT40.